At some point, you probably have noticed that when you're soloing, you play a lick and you end on a different note, say, it has a very different personality or characteristic just by ending on a different note. And we can choose very specific notes to end our licks on. This is called targeting. So for example, we might target the root. I talk about that a lot in these videos, right? Targeting the root has a particular sound. It sounds like we are finishing our sentence or our paragraph. But we also want to target, say, fifths. We could target thirds. We could target all kinds of things because each one of those degrees of the scale has a different personality. So here we're going to talk about targeting the fifths. It's a lot easier than you think. A lot of music books, especially music theory books, will tell you, well, you've got to memorize what is the fifth of the key of A or what is the fifth of the key of C. But us guitar players, you know what? It turns out we really don't need to do that. All we really need to do is memorize where the fifths are in relation to the root. It is way, way easier. So what do I mean by that? Like, let's take A minor pentatonic because it's easy. It's just a good example, right? A minor pentatonic is here from the 5th fret. We'll just play easy shape. No problem. You probably know where the roots are already. Hopefully you do. If you don't, that's what's one thing you're going to memorize here. We started A minor pentatonic here, so we know that's a root, right? There's a root here. That's up an octave. We call that an octave shape. And there's a root up here, 5th fret of the high E string, because, well, that's just the E string again, right? So if we can memorize where the roots are in a pentatonic shape, we can memorize where the thirds are, or the fifths are, or whatever we want. So let's just find the fifths. In fact, I bet you, if you've played guitar for a little while, you already probably know how to play an A power chord. Well, there's the fifth right there, because a power chord is a root and a fifth. So, of course, it has the fifth right there. Now we've already memorized where the fifth is, and we can use that to target that note in our solos when we want to have that particular sound. And the fifth does have a particular sound. But before we do that, let's just make sure we got the full concept here, because we could, like I say, memorize that E is the fifth in the key of A. Why is that? Because A, B, C, D, E, that's 5, right? And we could go through all the keys and memorize what they are, but it would be tough, right? We would have to memorize that in the key of F, it's C, in the key of G, it's D, in the key of A flat, it's, what is it? It's E flat. That's a lot of memorization. But as we see with the guitar fretboard, we don't need to, because we just know where it is physically. One, we don't have to do all that studying. We don't have to do all that memorizing. But two, it's actually just far faster in the moment when we're in the middle of a song. We don't have to be thinking in advance, oh, what's the fifth of A? Oh, that's the sound I want. Because that's just not realistically how we do it in guitar. So whenever you read that in another theory book, forget about it. Don't worry about it. We want to know what the fifth is. We want to understand the concept. We want to know how to find it so that we can use it. And we want to train our ear, what do fifths sound like? So that's what we're talking about here, right? If I just play, let's play an A power chord. Let's make it simple. The fifth sounds like this. There it is. The root is solid, right? If I just descend minor pentatonic with whatever all the way down to the root, or this root, it sounds very final, right? That sounds good. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know, I talk about targeting roots all the time, and that's a good step. You should get good at targeting roots first, but the fifths have a very different personality. So we want to be able to target fifths, and then maybe thirds, and then maybe minor sevenths or whatever. We can get to that in another video. But where's the fifth again? We remember that an A power chord looks like this. We just remember that the fifth is there. So let's descend. I'm going to descend A minor pentatonic with some blah 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 lick like this. And there's the fifth, right? It has a particular sound. You You can see how the fifth sounds like we're not done yet. Like we're saying, hold on now, I got something else that I want to say. My story isn't finished, and wait for the punchline. That's kind of what the fifth says. And we can hear it against the chord. When you practice this kind of targeting, it really helps to, one, just play a chord first. Just use the power chord for now to keep it simple. And play something down to the fifth. We can hear that is not finished. Compare it to the way it sounds if I land on the root. That sounds quite final, right? But the fifth is not final. It sounds like something is hanging on still, like we're gonna say something next. So now we've memorized where the fifth is. We could move that to any chord, any key, right? It really doesn't matter. That was A, because the fifth is there. But it changes keys to whatever. Let's go up to C. There's the fifth there. It's in the same spot. Play a C chord, descend C minor pentatonic. There it is. That's the fifth, right? You can hear it in relation to that chord. Let's do G. There's a blue note going up to it. That sounds pretty good. It sounds especially unfinished when you go up to that blue note like that. But that's not the only fifth in this minor pentatonic shape. There's another fifth. It's right there. What do I mean another fifth? Well, it's just another E note because E is the fifth, right? We said A, B, C, D, E, that's 5. There's an E there. There's an E there. And again, that is one way of doing it. One way of doing it is thinking, well, the fifth in A is E, and then you would have to know, well, there's an E on the 5th fret of the B string right there. And so you could land on that note, and that would give you that sound that we're looking for, that unfinished sound. So that's one way of doing it. You could play whatever. Has that unfinished sound. But the other way of doing it, again, is the easier way. It is the more guitar way of doing it, and that is just memorizing where the fifth is. Whenever you are in easy shape, A minor pentatonic, or not A minor pentatonic, whenever you are in easy shape minor pentatonic, it's there. It's just a little bit of memorization that when we want that sound, there it is. So play a lick and then end on the fifth. You just kind of walk up to it, or play a lick and now end on the root, and we'll see how it sounds different. Do the fifth. Do the root. They're very different, right? Let's hear it with a jam track. You can hear the context. So this is a 12-bar blues. You can hear the difference. We can take any lick that we like. We could play the same lick, ended on the fifth, the same lick, ended on the root, and we get a radically different sound. It's a really easy technique. And now we see that targeting tones, targeting chord tones or specific tones of the scale is not difficult. We just need to apply a little bit of memorization. You could just memorize where the fifths are, and today you just start practicing, well, here's your fifths, here's your fifth, and you're just gonna play licks and land on fifths. That's step one, and that would be great, right? We wanna know these things. Roots, we wanna know where fifths are in the shape. And remember, this is minor pentatonic easy shape we're talking about. And then we can just start practicing with a 12-bar blues or whatever song form you like, and aiming for roots and hearing how they sound, because roots tend to resolve. And the fifths, depending on the chord underneath, are going to sound like they are not resolving. Which reminds me, because this week on our Patreon, we're going to have loads of practice on how to target fifths against these different chords. So if you haven't already tried our Patreon, you can check it out. You can actually get 7 days for free right now. The link is below. I hope to see you there. My name is Blue Morris, and I teach guitar lessons right here in Vancouver, Canada, and I'll see you in the next one.